Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. I'm going to hit you up with a little bit more coronavirus questions. So recently, while I was doing some other videos, I actually heard about and then found and read the study. There's been a real randomized control trial on masks, and the end result is masks don't do anything. At least protective, okay? They don't. The end result of the study is there's no significant decrease in catching coronavirus in the population wearing masks versus the population not wearing a mask. Now, there's two directions with that to look at. One, of course, is that you've got the infection coming in and the infection going out, and now the religious aspect of mask wearing is you wear the mask to protect others. It's your signal of virtue. It is like wearing a rosary on your neck, right? So if you go back last January, February, I did a fairly deep dive on this. I did it for myself. I didn't do it to try to prove to the world anything because masks weren't a thing. I got really curious about what was going on with people running around in coffee shops wearing masks while science dudes were running around with their shirts saying, "I love coronavirus," explaining that masks don't do anything and here's the research. And all those science dudes are now, telling you that you're an evil, horrible Nazi right-winger if you don't wear a mask. Science is a religion for a lot of people. So what I looked at, and this goes all the way back into, this actually goes all the way back into the late 19th century, but a lot of what we're dealing with masks, with the actual research and the data, is 20th century, and you've got, you're looking at 80 to 100 years worth of data now. And masks, the mask thing was supposed to be about protecting others when we had the Manchurian plague and the the so-called Spanish flu, the 1918 trench flu, which is what it was. And we realized over time that wasn't what was going on, so the model changed. And then it was that healthcare workers and first responders, police officers and stuff would wear masks to protect themselves. Okay, but we know that doesn't work also. And so a lot of this is based on something called the aseptic model of infection or disease prevention, which is that if you prevent the sepsis, if you prevent the infection from being there, then you've prevented, as opposed to the antiseptic, which is where you clean the surface. Instead of cleaning the surface with a disinfectant or an antiseptic, what you do is you just have a clean surface and then nothing ever touches it. Aseptic. That's the model that we're talking about, okay? And I think that the metaphor here actually works really well because we're talking about that idea that you'll just keep stuff from happening. And, touch your mask, touch your face, touch your mask, touch someone else. The masks get damp. Anyway, I'm not going to argue about masks right now. The mechanisms are pretty clear. We know how well they work. We know how well they don't work. We also know that in professional settings with professional trained people, there's no significant impact in reducing the spread of common diseases, common transmissible diseases like flus and colds from wearing a mask in a healthcare setting. Now, remember that these are all epidemiological, so they're self-reporting studies, so there's a big, huge bias in the data, which is whether or not people lie. And the people who report washing their hands and wearing a mask, there's more effect in reducing the disease spread than people who just say they wash their hands or people who just say they wear a mask. And the people who just say they wear a mask, there's nothing. People who just say that they wash their hands, there's a little bit, and then people who say they do both, there's a little bit more. And that's, conscientiousness as a personality trait is going to affect your answers, but no one ever asks a psychologist to get into these epidemiological studies. Anyway, we have a new study out, says masks are kind of like but masks are the centerpiece. Like they're the centerpiece because they're visible and because they serve the function of a science religious rosary. Okay, so they're very much the centerpiece, even though they're the least important. Technically, I am a high-risk individual. I have reduced lung function. I actually have serious lung damage, such that I don't wear a mask. Not gonna either. And there are actual medical reasons to that. There's also mycotoxin reintroduction. You can actually make yourself sick from breathing close air that you exhaled because of serious autoimmune disorders, because of mycotoxins, and I'm not even going to go there because none of you are ever going to want to know what that means. And you get kind of grossed out if you did. It's pretty gross. But making yourself sick is actually, it's a thing. Whew. Technically, I'm a high-risk individual. The best thing for me to do would be to do my grocery shopping at 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. However, most places that have coronavirus restrictions limit hours. So you're not allowed to open before 4 a.m. or be open after 10 p.m. Walmart is an example that I use on a regular basis because I live in a rural area where there's a Walmart that serves thousands of square miles of this desert region, and you don't really have a lot of other options. So we use the Walmart as an example. They close their hours down to like boom, 8 to 8, 8 to 7 at first, right? Now they're doing 7 to 8. And actually just now, because of holiday season, because of Black Friday, starting this week, they're opening 7 to 11 because holiday shopping. Now, this was supposed to do something about reducing the spread of the disease, pausing the disease, flattening the curve, right? What's the logic in this? What earthly logic do you have? The same number of people need to get the same amount of food, and they're panicking and trying to get extra supplies because, we don't know what the supply situation is going to be next week. What if the trucks stop running for a while? Because all the crazy people have responded crazy and non-intelligently. Okay? So you get all the same number of people with a 24-hour Walmart, which is actually a pretty big deal out here because people sometimes drive 8 hours. We have mines, we have people who work third shift, we have people who work all sorts of different shifts. There's military base, lots of different shifts, much more around the clock. This is not a factory town that runs one shift. So all these different shopping hours are compressed. Same number of people wanting to buy stuff, compressed into 1/2 or less of the hours available to shop. And this is supposed to be good for controlling the spread of coronavirus. Well, the spread of SARS-CoV-19, SARS-CoV-2, which expresses as COVID-19. Whatever. What's the logic? How does that work? How are you reducing? So they close all of the entrances but one because they are going to make everyone funnel right past. Now this is a doorway. The doorway is not 10 feet, 12 feet, 20 feet wide. Okay, the two doors open, it's less than 6 feet. There's a person standing in the door. Every single person in the county has to go past this person within 6 feet to get into the store. One entrance. Everything else is closed down because this is going to control the spread of coronavirus. reduce the spread of coronavirus. Now, people like me tend to have a little bit of suspicion about the necessity of various lockdown provisions. I'm okay with a certain amount of social distancing. I think that spreading people out is a good idea. Now, when you say social distancing from a I don't know how to say it, a pro-lockdown point of view, whatever, a science religionist point of view, you're talking about a set of behaviors. I'm talking about stop living in cities, because social distancing isn't an invisible bubble of 6 feet or 2 meters, because it works better in metric. Or 9 feet, or 3 feet. That's not the point. It's how many people live in how dense an area, and it is amazing how few people actually can understand how density works. You need to own chickens or pigs or a herd animal with pens and to actually understand the idea of square feet. You can separate the chickens and make them maintain social distance, but there's a certain amount of space beyond that is necessary for the population to be healthy. Humans don't get that. You just stack and stack and stack and breathe and breathe and breathe. And all the waste and all the infrastructure and all the smog and everything goes in it. HVAC. Wow! The idea that you have a single air handling system for buildings of thousands of people, and that this is supposed to be healthy. Forget about the pandemic. Just looking at mold spores, okay, spore-based illness or mycotoxins. This is such a bad idea. It's an incredibly bad idea. All those people, all the exhalations, all the inhalations, all the airflow incoming through the same filter. Crazy, right? Whatever. Social distancing is probably the most reasonable of the non-hygiene based ideas. Okay, social distancing. Plastic barriers between people at checkout stands and food ordering counters and whatever, that's fine. It's probably more effective than the masks, doesn't matter. Why you have to have a mask so you don't breathe on a plastic barrier, I don't know. That's just bizarre bullshit, right? There's a layer of layer. It's like the guy who goes hiking out where I go hiking, who wears 3 masks while he's hiking because they all do different things. It's crazy land. Now, hand washing, hygiene, bathing, clothes washing, and all of these go together. You're going to say, oh, well, the clothes washing probably doesn't matter. Maybe, maybe not, but I think that hygiene altogether definitely does. I can show you evidence with disease spread as a general function of how many people are sick from all causes with hygiene. So, which is a better way to look at it than trying to track down one individual virus, because you get so many conflicting answers, even in your own data. Whoa! So, stupid. Closing all the entrances, restricting the hours, the running at 50% capacity, whatever. I think that there's a better way to handle it than trying to mandate 50% for large retail and 25% for small retail, which is what our governor is currently doing, which is obviously a unfair. It's an arbitrary restriction. I expect that one to get fought in court at some point. There's no mention of outdoor exercise being positive in general. There are a couple places where people will talk about it. There's a couple places where people have complained so much that you can even get a CDC doctor to say, yes, it's actually safe and healthy to walk and get exercise. But you kind of have to push them into it. It's not a common thing. And it is common for people who are on the lockdown side to actually tell people, just shut up, wear your mask, and stay inside. I get that comment on social media of various types on a daily basis. Stay inside. Shut up, wear your mask, stay inside. None of this makes any sense. The responses are non-rational. How can I take this seriously from this point of view, that the idea of lockdowns, the pandemic restrictions, how can I take it seriously when so much of it is clear, logical nonsense? It doesn't take a lot of effort to figure out that it's safer for a person to go into an uncrowded store than into a crowded store. Therefore, restricting hours, which causes people to crowd more, is a bad idea. This is not hard. But everything about the response has this counter-logical, counter-rational, irrational, religious, fanatic feel to it. So it's very hard for someone who is somewhat skeptical of this. And that's not denier, just skeptical. I know the virus exists. I know that the disease is expressed and seems to definitely involve the virus. But the reactions are nonsensical, insane, and every time you come up with an answer that might alleviate masks or lockdowns, like go outside, exercise, vitamin D, the unnameable medication that seems to work in other parts of the world, whatever it is, you get shot down. People attack it. Like, I've actually been attacked for the idea of going outside and exercising, and it's nonsense like this that makes me very skeptical of the responses and the plans. I don't think the lockdowns are necessary. I don't think the lockdowns in general are effective, necessary, or positive, not beneficial. And the reason is because they are so nonsensical and ignore the things that we know are important. Hygiene. Very difficult to find a bathroom in public. Hygiene is the important thing. Hygiene, exercise, and especially with this particular virus strain, sufficient hormone, vitamin D, produced in your body in layers of your skin organ in exposure to sunlight. Really simple. So why can't I go shopping in the middle of the night to keep myself healthy? Because lockdown. Yeah, well, stay sideways and ask some questions, man.